On April 9, 1865, Union forces trapped Lee's army near a small town of Appomattox Courthouse in western Virginia. Vastly outnumbered, outgunned, and nearly surrounded, Lee agreed to meet Grant that afternoon to discuss terms of surrender. At around 1:30 in the afternoon on April 9th, Lee and Grant met at the McLean house in the village with the group of officers. Lee was dressed in his best uniform, complete with sash and sword. He had expected that he would be taken prisoner by Grant, and he wanted to be sure to look his best. Grant arrived in a muddy field uniform, having rushed to the meeting from his battlefield camp. He had no intention of arresting Lee as a prisoner of war. Grant did not want to rush the topic of surrender, knowing it would be a difficult and awkward discussion, so he brought up that the two men had met once before during the Mexican-American War. After a brief exchange, Lee brought Grant back to the point of the meeting and suggested that Grant present his terms. The terms of surrender were drafted by Eli Parker, a Seneca Indian and member of Grant's staff present in the room that day. Grant's terms for Lee's surrender were very generous. Confederate soldiers had to lay down their arms, but were allowed to return to their homes without punishment. Rebel soldiers could keep their horses so they could use them in the fields to help plant crops and feed their starving families. And Grant offered 3 days' worth of food so that Lee could feed his starving men. Lee accepted Grant's terms, and the Army of Northern Virginia surrendered, leading to the surrender of all Confederate forces. The surrender was a highly emotional affair for the participants, many of whom had been fighting for 4 years. Soldiers on both sides cheered and cried, often at the same time. The formal surrender ceremony and the collection of weapons took place on April 12th, under the supervision of Brigadier General Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, the hero of Gettysburg. As ranks of Confederate soldiers came forward to hand over their weapons and flags, Chamberlain ordered his men to salute their defeated adversaries as a gesture of respect. Other witnesses also reported that interactions between Yankees and rebels were almost entirely kind and friendly. War gave way to reconciliation, and the country was beginning to heal. Aside from a few bands of Confederate forces still at large in the West, the Civil War had finally come to an end.